Yeah, I'm good. Shoot. Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to another episode of Beautiful I Am Colored. My name is Evelyn, and I am the creator of this podcast as well as the author of the book titled Beautiful I Am Colored. And this is a place where I share insights and perspectives that I've gained from my week. And so this is a very special episode because loyal listeners will know that my husband at times makes a cameo appearance on the show. And so he is here with us today. So welcome, Marlon, in advance. And the reason why he's here is because many of you who follow me on Instagram or Facebook know that we celebrated over the weekend our 28th anniversary. And so I thought how befitting it would be to have him come on here and we can share both perspectives and insights that we've gained from the week, from different conversations that we've had with people. But before we cascade into that, I like to ground each and every episode with a segment titled Shout Outs and Thank Yous. And this is just a moment where I shout out a person, place, thing, or idea. So Marlon, that's your cue to kind of think about a person, place, thing, or idea so you can shout out to. You got a time. I gave you the heads up. You can't see him because we're not on video, but he was shaking his head like... But you see how I gave him the courtesy up so that he knows what to expect? And I'm going to go first so he has time to think about it. Anyhow, so we're going to start with that first. So I want to just say thank you, first and foremost, to every single person who has posted on one of our pages, just saying, like all kinds of wonderful comments about our relationship and the admiration of our relationship, which I can tell you sometimes is kind of hard for us because, we're just us. And so we are learning to say thank you to those comments. But I can just tell you having the responsibility is challenging at times in terms of how people uphold us versus how we're moving through life. Anyhow, nonetheless, I'm very appreciative. Of course, it goes without saying, I am appreciative of sharing 28 years married and 30-something odd years of doing life with my husband and before that, my boyfriend. And it's just been a whole ride to get to this place from navigating teen years to young adults to being 25 and 23 with 4 kids and a house and a whole bunch of things along the way. But more than anything, it has been just a true joy to have somebody to do life with. And like I said earlier, this past week, and to still like them very much and genuinely like them. That's one. Second, I want to just say thank you. So we had the privilege, again, you might have seen a couple of pictures on my pages, and from the weekend, we had the privilege of sharing our anniversary celebration weekend with a couple this year. And it was the very first time that we have ever done that in the entire time we've been married. We've never had like a double date or anything for the anniversary. But this year, Marlon suggested that we invite Rachel and Albus. And I'm so happy that they came because the dialogue and the conversation really kind of had me thinking about maybe we should go ahead and just talk about this stuff a little bit more on the podcast as Marlon is able to and as schedule allows. So thank you so much, Albus and Rachel, who are recently engaged. So congratulations to them again. But thank you so much for just the deep, thoughtful conversations that we had. And so now, Marlon, what about you? What are the shout out and thank you for you this week?
A shout out for me this week is just a simple shout out and happy birthday to Bradley Smith. Well, who probably won't, I don't know if he will end up hearing this, but just an old friend from Tucson. Him and his wonderful wife, Shanique, and their family.
Oh, happy birthday, Brad.
They've been friends for such a long time. And they moved across country, and we don't see them as much as we used to. But you know how it is with really good friends. Whenever you do see them or you do talk, it's like you never really was away from each other. And he's that type of friend. They are that type of couple and friend. So he had a birthday this past week. I just want to wish him happy birthday. and hope that everything is well with Brad and the Smith family.
Awesome. That was so beautiful. I miss Brad and Shanique so much too.
They're good people. Really
man,
good.
Such an influential couple. Probably more than they know still today.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in then to today's topic. And when we were at dinner over the weekend, some different questions were asked and some different topics. And, you know, one of those things is kind of like talking through like the things that people don't talk through about navigating relationships and marriage. And we were asked kind of like, you know, what the top 3 things were, our top things that have kind of like gotten us to this point. And one of the things that I shared was, you know, allowing, you know, your significant other space to pivot when there's a season of change upon you. And that cascaded into a conversation or an example about, you know, in our younger years when I think it might have been year 7 or 8, somewhere up in there of our marriage where I really wanted to go back to school. And Marlon was talking about how, you know, it made some things rise up in him, you know, that questioned if our relationship was going to, you know, withstand this new adventure. Because prior to that, I had only been defined in like a single category, if you will, or 2 categories. And that was just the role of my wife and mother. So venturing out into this other part of, quote, finding myself created a little bit of static. And so I was saying that I was so appreciative, and I don't think our marriage would have lasted this long had we not both had moments in life where the other person had, I don't know, an epiphany, or they had a dream, a goal, or something that the other person didn't support, even if they were slightly to moderately insecure about that other person's growth. And so that's one of the things that I shared. Marlon, anything come to your mind when, you know, well, I know a lot of things come to your mind because you're a thinker, but what comes to your mind when I share that particular point about, you know, allowing the person in your life to pivot, like to evolve within the context of the marriage or the relationship?
I share your sentiment about it. I know we discussed it at dinner. I think I think it's very important when 2 people come together to create a union to not forget that you're still individuals as well. Basically, you're making an agreement that as 2 individuals, you're committing to grow together to create a union. And I think for that to be the case, there has to be these ebbs and flows of understanding that there'll be times when, you know, you may experience growth in an area that I might not be experiencing. It could be career, it could be spiritual, it could be a number of different things. And being able to talk about that and allowing each other the room to have that growth is very important. And I think talking about it and being willing to come up with compromises and different type of accommodations to ensure that you're giving each other room to grow, but also keeping in mind that you guys are still together as a couple. I think it's important to do. A lot of times couples don't do that. You hear the phrase all the time, we grew apart. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes that is because one individual in a relationship had all these things happen in a microcosm. They didn't talk about it. They didn't share it. And just like all of a sudden that person popped up with, I want to go back to school or something, or I'm changing my religion, whatever it is, I'm going to be vegan or something like that. Those are things that need to be talked about along the way and really kind of getting an understanding. It don't mean that you have to stop or not do it, but I just think it's important to get it out there. And I think if 2 people are really trying to have that type of communication and really trying to work with each other and understanding that you have dreams and you want to accomplish things in your life the same way that I do, and understanding that we will have to kind of work together to have those things fulfilled, I think that leads to success in marriage. And I think it's one of the things that has helped us quite a bit is we both have had seasons extreme seasons where we've done different things that were difficult for maybe each other to accept, but being able to talk through it and understanding that, hey, this growth is not because I'm growing away from you, or I don't want to do this with you. Is the growth is because there's things in my life that I want to pursue too, and I want to pursue them with you. Still in partnership with you, but I want these things for myself as well. And it's important to talk about. So I think that I think that's something that we've been able to do, and pray that we'll continue to do as we move forward, because no one stays the same, even in marriage.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. I was thinking when you were talking just now, I was just thinking about sometimes it can be very difficult though, right? Especially if the other person doesn't necessarily understand or have the vision for what the other person has. For example, because on this podcast, I do like to use myself as an example. When I wanted to go to law school, I remember that being a conversation. That was quite frankly difficult for me because, you funded my education. And so it wasn't a light dollar amount associated, with me wanting to pursue something that I just wanted to accomplish. This was just a goal of mine, but I couldn't really speak to the full details of the why associated with it. And then what exactly am I going to do with yet another degree? And I remember you didn't really understand it at the time, because I didn't have necessarily a full scaled out plan about that and my next steps, but you supported me nonetheless. Even showed up to the spouse orientation, the special spouse orientation that they had, so that you could understand the stress and strains associated with being in law school, and that meant a lot to me. And I think likewise, when you launched Level, similarly, I didn't know all the ins and outs. I mean, of course, you shared the business plan and all that with me, and I helped along the way. But I just think that it's your baby, it's your vision. So, how dare me speak anything that is nothing but support, because it's a baby, And I think that's what dreams and visions and goals are, especially when you're evolving. They really are analogous to taking care of an infant, And so there's great care that has to take place when, you have a new arrival, whether that's in business, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in, to your point, spiritual growth and development, and to allow that other person to do it. But I do think in order to allow that space, there has to have some form of established trust in order to do it. I don't think it's as easy, let's say when we were in our 20s, for example. I don't think we had the mindset at that time to just allow space for certain things.
Sure. I agree with that. I also think I would be, it's important to state that it does take trust. And it also, some of this could be real difficult, especially when you start talking about changing jobs and finances. And it's well, if I'm making a certain amount, but I want to go and be a teacher, and it's going to reduce my salary by 50%, what does that do to the lifestyle of the family? What does that do to the luxuries you like to enjoy? And that could turn into some very difficult conversations. I mean, these are things that cause people to not want to be together, right? Because you've made such a life-altering decision that it's creating so much friction with us that it's I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And so I do think it requires extreme trust, to your point. And then it also just requires a lot of communication, to understand, because it's a sacrifice in a lot of ways. If I want to pursue something, no matter what it is, it's probably going to change, whether it's time, money, or whatever. It's probably going to change a little bit of the dynamics of the relationship. And so being able to approach those things and discuss those things and lay out the pros and cons of them, and then also being willing to establish that trust, and then also being willing to communicate your fears about how you feel about your spouse making these jumps, and really trying and working through those things in advance, I think are very important. It don't guarantee success. If that was the case, a lot of people probably should be together, but it can help, right, to be able to understand what are we getting into and can I handle this? Is it the right time for this? And guess what? Sometimes you might have to postpone what you really want to do for the greater sake of the union as well. So I definitely want to paint both sides of the coin, because there's been times where we have done what you said, and there's been other times when things have come up where we both have said maybe this is not the time, and you've had to bite the bullet. I've had to bite the bullet, and so I don't want to give this real mushy like, oh, we pursue everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to start my rap career. It's going down. I'm quitting everything. I mean, maybe, but sometimes it might not be logical.
Yeah.
So it really depends. And so that communication and that trust must be there in order to navigate when these big life changes come up. And if you don't have those things established, then it might be even that much more difficult to work through when life changes come. And guess what? If you are together for any amount of time, they will come.
Absolutely.
Whether it's maybe an unexpected pregnancy, do you want more kids, change in career, a lifetime opportunity shows up, family members passing away, something changing with your parents and they got to move in with you. It's so many different things that will come up and can come up that will be life altering. And so if you don't have that trust and communication from the beginning, it's going to make it that much more difficult to talk through. So
I think you raise a critical piece, especially when you talk about communication. And then I will tell you that I was contacted privately after I posted, like a shout out to you and our anniversary and stuff, and how much you mean to me and stuff. There were a couple of people who reached out to me who were just saying it was the like part, of the post that was like, that resonated. And verbally people have told me that too. And I think the likeness or the likability within the relationship really has to do with having a very strong foundation in friendship, and by friendship, I think like, this is my opinion, and I know some people are going to reject it, and I respect that. But my opinion is that your person you have just signed up to do life with, like, I'm not saying that you can't have other best friends, that are of your same. That's fine. But if you can't say, like, within the context of your marriage, like, that's my dude, that's my girl, this is how we roll, this is what we do, as friends, like, I think it makes it a lot more challenging. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason, this is dropping down, so I'll give it real quick. And that is, if you have reached a place in your marriage where you had that friendship in the beginning, in some kind of way, you've lost your footing in the friend lane, I just want to encourage you to maybe revisit that and have the conversation about, this is what is missing for the relationship and what you miss about it, and how can you start again. Sometimes it's just not coming with, all the passion and the energy behind something when you want to have a conversation. Sometimes it's just truly, to your point, Marlon, being vulnerable enough to share, what those fears are, within the relationship. But I really do feel very strongly that it has to be friend first, because if you weren't like my friend, like, I can't, like, I go to you for a lot of things, like, on a friend level, like, not just as my husband provider, but like, I go to you to seek advice. I go to you with work stuff. I go to you with community stuff, to just talk things through. And I know from talking to others that this is something that a lot of relationships do not have. But I would just push back a little bit and say one of the reasons why you don't have is because you haven't made it a top priority and you haven't pushed for that. I'm not saying that there aren't times where in your relationship where it might just be the end. For some people, that is the case, and you can start over with somebody else and maybe establish that. But for a lot of people, the effort that it takes to nurturing that part of the relationship is what I just said, effort, which equates to work. And that's the piece where I feel like a lot of people will tap out because it just gets too hard. Oh, you didn't understand this. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to come to you and talk to you about anything else. And then there's this whole, wall up in terms of communication to where now you're not sharing that with them. You might be sharing it with your girlfriends. You might be sharing it with somebody else. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. And so this is why I say this is, to me, is the critical, most foundational point. And then if you have the other piece, I would say that I've noticed throughout our marriage is that for anyone who says things like, dang, they always together. Why you always bringing your husband, they won't say it to you directly, but you just hear things, like, you see one, you see the other, typically. I've heard that before, I know Marlon or Evelyn got to be here somewhere because basically we're together. Watch out for people like that. Okay. See, I gotta keep it. I gotta keep it a whole, but watch out for folk like that because so you watching this relationship enough to try to, it's one thing for you to just notice and observe. It's a whole nother thing for you to be fully dialed in. You know what I'm saying? To another person's relationship like that. I'm just saying, have your meter up and guard your relationship. It's worth protecting. Which cascades into my second point that I wanted to talk to you about. And that's this whole idea of sacred, and how I feel like personally, we have absolutely fundamentally lost the value of things that are sacred. And I do think, that is largely contributed to social media because everything is just out there, especially all the good things.
Yeah.
Or, pivoting to like mainstream media, all the negative things. And you just see these two glaring things that are out there and nothing that's in between, And so I want you to, if you wouldn't mind, because we talked about this, with our friends, but also talked about this privately often, is that there must be something that is sacred to the union that you don't necessarily include others in on. And I'll let you start because I have a couple of thoughts, but I'll let you start on this point because I do think this is yet another piece to where we have done, to pat ourselves on the back, that sounds so arrogant, but we have done a really good job of guarding, certain things within our marriage, not because it's a secret, because God knows I put our business out there on this podcast and in my book, but, there are certain things that everybody don't need to know. Like, it's okay if you have a goal and your job is to help others and stuff like that. So which is the reason why I share so many intimate things in the book and on the podcast. But if that's not your lane, you know what I'm saying? Like, there should be some things that are just reserved. It's a reason why things that have been kept a very long time are more pricey. Like, you have to pay a premium for wine that's 100 years old. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you pay a premium for that, and there's a reason why. So can you speak to that a little bit about just
for sure.
Things being sacred?
I think the thing that comes to my mind is like the things that people value the most, like diamonds and gold and stuff. There is a reason why they're so valuable. You have to mine them. You just can't go find a good piece of gold. You're not gonna just stumble on gold. You're not gonna just stumble on a diamond. Like, they're rare. They're hard to find. And therefore they're valuable. And I know when I think about relationships, I think it's very important that you do create things that are sacred to the person that you're with. I think from a man's perspective, even all the way down to what you see, and what you hear and who you entertain. A lot of men like to say stuff like, you can see what you want to see. You can look at it long, you look but don't touch, those type of things. And everybody got their own opinion, do what you want to do. But one of the things I really try to practice in my life and in my marriage is really trying to guard where my imagination's going, what I'm focusing on, what I'm thinking about, what I'm seeing, because it allows me to have eyes for you. It allows me to be able to focus on you when it's time to focus on you. There's so many things going on with social media and everything that people are seeing so many things that they can't even really focus. And there's not a lot of standards around protecting and guarding, and not realizing that it's dulling you. It's dulling. It's making you numb to certain things. I think it's important from that standpoint. And then also in just how you deal with your spouse. That's the reason why you are together and you married a person and you put a ring on their finger and you try to set the marriage apart, is because you're saying that this relationship is sacred. This is something that I cherish. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that, it's whatever y'all create for your own marriage is for you. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, every now, you have friends and you share with others and all that. Don't mean that because that's the case, I control every single thing that happens with you and you control every single thing that happens with me. But what it does mean is that there's a certain point where, everybody else is on the outside because we've agreed that we're building our life together, our lives together. And so we need to spend time talking about and planning what that is and what that looks like and how we're going to execute toward that and how we're going to strengthen that and fortify it. And I think that's very important for any couple to do. Go and set the rules of how you are going to handle business and how y'all are going to do things. And then once you determine that, then that's the law. Yeah. That's what y'all moving on. Of course, you can grow and stuff, but once you get to that point, you're moving on that. And not to be moved, and to be very careful about people who are trying to constantly interject things into the situation, especially if you and your spouse have agreed on it. That's important, and so sacredness to me is a really, really big deal. And I think it's an extreme problem, specifically in our community right now, that we don't value the institution of marriage. I think it's a fundamental institution that a lot can get done out of. Not to sound, religious or political or anything like that, but I just think there's something really big that we're missing about being able to come into a union of a marriage. You can launch a lot of things from that place if you have two people that just agree that they're willing to work together and build together. You can launch a lot from that place.
I totally agree with that. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed, I think, over the years, is that there's a flourishing effect in a marriage that is healthy. It doesn't mean that you haven't gone through things, because God knows that we have, and I've written about it, literally. But I think that, how they say, because I typically reference the Bible on here, but you'll know a tree by its fruit, and so a healthy relationship is going to naturally give more than what the seed is. In other words, all of the different fruits that are going to come on, whether it's a pear tree, since this is my analogy, pear tree, peach tree, whatever, it's always in multiplication. Right? It derives from maybe a seed, but it's multiplied. And that's how I think a marriage should be. Over the course of the years, it should be multiplied in such a way that it's bountiful enough to spread onto others in different ways. And that could be, to your point, that could be in business. That could be like what we're doing right now, sowing seeds. Like, we're just talking openly about some of the things that we feel like have been beneficial in our relationship. But ultimately, there should be a sign of health, right? And I think that comes in the multiplication of it all. And I think two people working together, especially, and this is a topic for another time because we're running out of time for today, but women, I feel very strongly, are created to help advance vision, help advance, because naturally we are built, literally, our physiological, our anatomy is built to create and to birth things. And I think that when you are linked with the right person, the magic happens. The magic happens. And so I hope in closing, because I do want to just us both to give, a little snippet of what we would hope in terms of an encouraging word for people, especially coming up on Valentine's Day, which is like it's kind of a bittersweet holiday for a lot of people. And so I just want to say, one, thank you for being here. Two, I want to have you back. Hopefully it doesn't take 6 or 7 months again to get you back on. But I'm so thankful for you, to you, for doing life with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I feel the same. I love you so much, and I really appreciate our union, and I look forward to continuing to build. And as far as in a word for anyone that's listening, I think for me, it's quiet the noise of outside forces, outside there's a lot of outside information, especially with social media and AI and everything that's going on right now. Everybody's not bad. Everybody's not, caught up in what's going on. And I think it's important that people temper their expectations a little bit and really concentrate on what they really want, especially when it comes to relationships and being able to open up and talk about things and work through things. Nothing's perfect.
Nothing.
And I think even with the social media and the way things are painted, even with us sometimes, it's a little irritating because I feel like people try to hold the relationship up at a certain level, which it is great that we've been together for so long, but it's like, yeah, that's great, but they don't know everything that we've been through to get here, right? There's been pain, tears, everything that you can think of for us to be here and talk the way that we do. And so you're not exempt from that. So as much as I hear sometimes people joke with me like, yeah, we want to have something like you do, you can. You can
have your own.
You can have your own, and also understand that in having your own, you probably gonna have some fights, some tears, some arguments. Sometimes it's infidelity. We don't want those things to be the case, but sometimes that's in play. I mean, all these things can come into play, which means when you're building with someone, you're dealing with everything that comes with the build, right? Like if you're building a home, the house don't look great. It don't look like a palace in the beginning. You gotta dig the foundation. You gotta put up the studs. You gotta put the roof on. You gotta do all these things. And so I guess my word would be, don't let the outside influences trick you into believing that you're gonna have something beautiful in a relationship without the work.
Wow. If I had something right now, that was good. I don't even need to really expound upon that. That was very, very powerful, and I fully agree. The thing that I would just say, from my vantage point, is that if you are someone who is with someone and perhaps you are in a pivoting season, one or both of you, I would just say, make a decision. If this person, you have the good starting blocks, like this person has the good starting blocks. They might not be there, meaning they might not have the salary that they will have one day. They might not have the career that they will have one day, or they just might be down and out right now, but you see the value, you see the potential. I would say do the nurturing work to navigate through the season. If you can work together to navigate through the seasons of change that we all experience, if you can navigate through that, I promise you your relationship will be all the more strong in the future as you add the years to you. And then for those who are waiting, because I have a lot of friends like that. Like, when is my guy gonna show up? Here's what I'll say to you. While you're waiting, do everything that you can to just work on yourself. And I know that's said a lot these days, especially in the self-care arena, but it really, truly is important to do that. Marlon and I have had to do the work within the context of marriage because we got together so young. But I think it is highly beneficial if you can work through some of those things individually before you link up with the other person. So work on you. And in the meantime, I'm going to be praying, because I do pray for the listeners of this podcast, that you'll find the right person, or the right person will find you. With that being said, this concludes another episode of Beautiful I Am Colored. I'm so thankful for all of you. We wish you a happy Valentine's Day, happy Super Bowl Sunday. But more than anything, remember, the future you is waiting on you. Have a great week, everyone.